Okay, I'll get started. So thanks for coming to my talk today. I'm Leen Schafer. My title is Manager of CIO Office. What that means is that I'm the Chief of Staff for CIO. And I also function as a technical product owner for a product called Compass that I'm going to talk to you about today. And I'm also responsible for kind of setting some of the vision around our digital transformation. And so big part of that is employee enablement. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and kind of my journey to getting to graph analytics. I did my undergrad in biomedical engineering, and I was quickly drawn to this concept of systems biology. Before, in biology, generally would take a reductionist approach where you look at one element in your system at a time and how it behaves. And more kind of looking at things in a network was really fascinating for me. And I was exposed to bioinformatics concepts and was really excited about it. And so I decided to go to graduate school for bioinformatics and systems biology. And in graduate school, I studied embryonic stem cell systems. We focused on single-cell RNA sequencing analytics and development. And I'll tell you, it was a really, really rapidly moving landscape. I developed a data set in my second year of graduate school, and by the end of the third year, that data set was totally obsolete. So it was moving really quickly. And the thing about the data sets, even though the technology was evolving very quickly, there were some complications. Mainly, it's mapping. We were working with highly complex systems. We were trying to understand the tissue hierarchy, so the lineage hierarchy of a tissue. So when how does a stem cell choose to develop into whatever end state it's going to be? And especially when you're looking at an embryonic system, it gets really complex. And that's where I was exposed to graph. And so I was really excited about the possibilities with graph analytics. And so with that, though, with the exposure to graph, the exposure to machine learning, I realized pretty quickly that I actually was really more attracted to this possibility of complex analytics. And so I went from life sciences to tech. And so that's where I am today. I'm in a technology company. I'll tell you a little about it in a bit. And how do I keep myself from going mad? Well, you talk to me for more than 30 minutes, you'll know that I rock climb, I sing, and I do a lot of yoga. Okay, so what is Viasat? Have you heard of Viasat before? Yeah, some, of course, Viasat people have. But I work at Viasat. And we're a satellite internet provider. And so our mission really is to connect the world. And we've been kind of growing very quickly over these past couple years. It really just exploding. And if you think about it, it was funny because I know earlier in the keynote, they gave the example of, growing quickly through acquisitions. Well, that's us. We're growing so quickly right now. So there's a lot of complexities to kind of what we do. We not only innovate the satellites, so we actually build the satellites ourselves. We also innovate the ground systems, the terminals that provide, so that we could provide connectivity to our customers. So we serve different kinds of customers. We serve residential and business customers, providing them connectivity. And if you took a flight here, you most likely used our Wi-Fi connectivity in flight. Hopefully it was good. And yeah, so that's been a big, major part of our business. And we also are a government contractor. So we serve a lot around the connectivity around comms and kind of special flights. So that has been a big part of our business development. And so, like I said, we strive to connect the world. That's our mission at Viasat. And now as we're growing and some of the complications that the pandemic brought on, it just becomes really hard to establish any sort of intracompany connection. And so, so we've experienced a lot of challenges. So it's been really great to see us delivering connectivity to kind of these remote villages in Mexico recently, to all over Brazil. It's been really exciting to see that growth. But now that we're growing internally, it's kind of important for us to start doing a little bit more introspection. And so the motivation behind this project, as we are growing very rapidly, is that the truth of it is knowledge at Viasat is very tribal. Our founders had a vision for our company. There's a lot of cool things about our culture. We're a culture of innovation. It's funny, there's this saying, we're the startup that never grew up. And so that brought on, while at the time it was fantastic for us to innovate rapidly, to create seamless collaborations across different teams, we also have a flat organization. So while we have kind of this notion of reporting hierarchy, if you had a great idea, you could go talk to the CEO, for example. There isn't, we try to kind of remove those boundaries that may prohibit innovation from happening. However, we've gotten to this critical mass, and this critical mass has brought us a lot of challenges around content discovery, around connection, around communication, and collaboration. And even though initially our culture was really focused on nurturing an environment for collaboration, at this point, it's just a lot easier to just stay in your tribe and work in your tribe. So it's kind of hard to get around. And this was completely unintentional. Essentially, when I first got to Viasat, I was on a team, a data science team, and it was so hard to know where my data sets came from. I would hear about kind of mythical data sets that existed, and I'd go hunting for them, and it was really hard to kind of find some information. And I kind of took a step back and realized, hey, you know, it's got to get a little bit better. And so information discovery, really hard. We had a heavy reliance on email for communication. Nowhere do we have a roster of product teams. That doesn't exist. We do have a notion of hierarchy, reporting hierarchy, but not really a notion of product teams. And plus, remember how I mentioned we're a government contractor? So that makes it even more challenging because we have sensitive projects all over the company as well. So really, it'd be nice if you just had one place to go to find answers. And so Compass was born. And Compass is very much in its infancy. I'm very pleased to announce that we launched the first deliverable of Compass in January, which is the Compass intranet. So let me kind of walk you through some of the features. So this was developed and designed in-house. We had a very much user experience-centric product development strategy. And some of the really important features for Compass were that it was personalized for each user. So I'm highlighting that, you know, we are pulling attributes about the user, about the location, providing them with some relevant information for their location, creating a place where you can have a profile page. We developed a very close collaboration with our internal communications team so that we can provide a place where we can have a content strategy, and we're constantly adding new content to our site every day to keep our users engaged. And we also kind of did some analytics around what are the most searched for things and resources, and we tried to curate that for our users. And so this is really exciting, the adaptive search. I'll talk a lot more about that today, but that is the place where we thought we could definitely leverage Neo4j as well. And coming soon, so we are pulling attributes about the user, but we want to provide content that's location-specific and team-specific for every user. We also want to engage those users and actually pull them so we could learn new information about them that we can leverage. And so, as you saw, the first deliverable of Compass was the intranet. And so, but the overall vision of what we're trying to do is around cultural transformation. So I mentioned that we do have a fantastic culture, but there are those unintended kind of consequences of having the startup culture in a very large company. And so we wanted to kind of create more consistent messaging. We want to foster an inclusive culture where people feel like they're part of a larger team. And we are growing very rapidly. We are currently in a acquisition of a company called Inmarsat in the UK, which is a large satellite internet company as well. Not nearly, I think a year ago at this point, we also acquired another company called RigNet, which I mean, you know, we're adding numbers very quickly to our staff. And so how do we propagate that culture that I talked about, the culture of innovation? So we want to be able to have people understand the business strategy and really kind of create a shared experience of the Viasat culture globally. It's hard for a new person to get around. I mean, you meet your team and you kind of learn about your team, but learning about the overall Viasat teams or teams that may be connected to you, you're really dependent on your manager to do so. So how do we kind of help that employee get connected to the content that they need, helping drive a really good experience for that employee? And leveraging company wisdom is something that, you know, I think we need to do better at as well. Because of how tribal we are, generally when somebody leaves, they kind of take some knowledge and information with them. And so how do we preserve that so that we can optimize our productivity and allow other teams to leverage that information as well? And so that's our long-term vision for this. So initially, we're addressing the first deliverable is the intranet, but ultimately, we're trying to build an employee enablement platform. And so let's talk a little bit about the data flow and how we're leveraging some different technologies here to do our content discovery. So I have up here our content, and a lot of them are grayed out, but we have so many different tools at our company and content kind of dispersed amongst those different tools. Initially for the MVP, we really focused on pulling in attributes about our people and the Atlassian Confluence deployment we have in-house that pulls content out of the wiki per se. So the other content data sources are definitely in the queue for us to pull in, but we started with those two. And then within that content, you can kind of break it down to three main data sources that give us some information about that content. One is the complete content itself. There's content metadata, and then there's also user data. How do users interact with that content? And so we pull this using workflows through our data flow. And we take that complete content and we leverage the Stanford Core NLP library to try to extract what are relevant key phrases that we can find in that content, any sort of entities. And we take that data and then we pull it into Neo4j. So a couple different things. So I'm highlighting solar here and Neo4j and machine learning. This is kind of all tied in together. When we first solution designed this, given that we're a government contractor and we have a lot of unclassified data on our network, what was really important for us solution design-wise is that we were able to, at the document level, provide really robust RBAC controls so that we were not showing people results that they didn't have access to. And plus, we wouldn't be in compliance with some of the DoD standards that that are put upon us, given the nature of the work that we do. The other part of the solution design, as I mentioned, a lot of our product development was focused on user experience first design. So it was really important for us that the search was very performant, lightning fast. We didn't want any latency in the search. So Solar was definitely a really big component of our solution design. And pulling in some of the metadata into Neo4j allows us to then do super cool things like build machine learning around our relevancy, because relevancy is a moving target. The content landscape is constantly changing. The relevancy landscape is constantly changing. And what's cool is that Solar can ingest machine learning parameters that we have established from our models. So it all fits in together really nicely to deliver, put together our first deliverable of search. But coming soon, we will be doing recommendations and then community matching. And so, as I mentioned, we have something about Viasat that makes it difficult for you to kind of purchase something like this, is the complexity of our security landscape. It's very complex. And we needed to scale. We are a global company. We needed to meet GDPR regulations and standards, and we needed the system to be performant, so we want to be able to scale this to any sort of environment or locality. We needed to be able to personalize. Like I said, knowledge is tribal, and so you want to reduce the cognitive load on the employees as much as possible and provide them with the most relevant information for them. Definitely was a big factor in our solution design. And as I mentioned, it's really important for us to have a best-in-class experience for our employees. So this is our starter data model. And so there's a lot of things going on in here, and you can see what we've completed thus far and what's in development and what's planned. And so what we've completed so far is that we've mapped in our people and their kind of management hierarchy. And people can create content, they can interact with content, they could comment on content. So those relationships also exist in our database. And the content itself has attributes and relationships. And so the content, for example, may have an acronym associated with it. This is funny, but you know, if you're new at Viasat and you join a meeting, it's acronym central. You're just trying to write down all the acronyms that people are saying, and you're trying to understand what they mean. And so this was really important that acronyms were a node in our data model, because a lot of times people will search and or communicate with these acronyms. Any sort of core NLP outcomes that we had around key phrases and entities, and pulling in any sort of external links or attachments that are associated with that content. So what's in development now, and what's in white, are we also have a database of user analytics. So this user may run a query for something. They may make some clicks after they run that particular query. And so how do we then leverage user behavior to know, okay, this is the most relevant thing to deliver to the user in the search results? So we are ingesting that as well. And some of the things that are coming up in red, we want to understand, so we have a notion of reporting hierarchy. We want to understand kind of the social hierarchy of a user. So there's kind of like frequency of email or Slack messaging that we want to look at. Of course, we're not trying to be Big Brother, so we're not trying to be weird and kind of look at everything you're doing. We just want to understand the frequency at which you communicate with kind of different groups around the company. What skills does a user have? this data is kind of dispersed in different systems right now, and we're definitely got it on the roadmap to ingest those data. We also think that we may be able to pull the users in our web app interface so that we can also kind of ingest some of this data into our system. Our navigating through a highly decentralized financial system as well is pretty gnarly. So understanding, what cost center you're in, what project you're in, where does it go, and there's a lot of stringent government regulations around mapping all of those costs to a particular effort. And then what team you're on. So that is something we actually have to yet determine, but if we can pull users or understand it from some of the content data sources that they create and what they interact with, then we can kind of understand this notion of teams. So how are we leveraging some of this? Well, right now, in the first iteration of this product, we are trying to leverage elements in the graph to deliver better relevancy on the search results. So we're leveraging some learning to rank algorithms. Right now, we're using a ranking SVM. And what are we using? We are using some of the attributes that you see there in the graph, so those page features. We're also leveraging PageRank. We're using graph embeddings, and for that, we are leveraging Graph Sage, and we're using click events. So right now, we're based on what a user is searching and what is clicking. We grab those click events and use them in our relevancy model. We're excited to kind of take this to the next step to a more personalized relevancy, but that'll be upcoming in the future. So how often do we train our models? The content landscape is constantly changing. People are constantly updating things. So we do bulk ingests. We are currently finalizing event-driven ingests of whenever somebody makes a change to that content. So as I mentioned, both the endpoints would be Neo4j and Solr, and so we then iterate on those learning to rank features with some regularity as the content data landscape changes. So we really strive for awesome experiences. This is a major part of our digital transformation strategy. And so what do I mean by awesome experiences? Well, the customer experience around this. Our team and really our company have been more focused on, customer first design. What does the customer want? And in this case, our customers are our employees. So it's been really fantastic working on this project focused on employee empowerment. But don't forget, we are a team of developers, so developer experience is really, really important to us. I have a lot of fun working on this project, and we try to make sure that everyone else is having fun as well. So what does this mean? It means that we establish some operational excellence and we automate all of the things, which has been a fantastic experience as well. And so, but with that, it's really important for us to continuously iterate and improve. And so, like I mentioned earlier, when I created a data set in grad school, it was obsolete by the next year, and the technology landscape is moving very quickly. So it's really important for us to continue to evolve and to kind of showcase this evolution for the rest of the company as we are trying to modernize our software development strategies. And we are an inner sourcing focused project. I am really excited to hear from the keynote all of the kind of managed services that Neo4j is starting to provide, because I think that that's going to enable us to create more opportunities to inner source around the company, which is really fantastic. But really, it's bringing it back to the founders of our company wanted it to feel like we were one team. And so it's really important for us to think about how we can take development from this project and open it up for the rest of the company and open it up to the outside world. This is pretty radical for us. Like I said, we're a government contractor, so public projects and from Viasat don't really exist right now, but we are pushing that to make that something that's just more feasible for us to do. And we're doing shared services enablement. So what do I mean by this? We'll kind of talk about what's coming up in phase 2 of the Compass development. So we're focused heavily on user research. I think that's really important. Some of the challenges with doing data science work that I saw as a data scientist was that you really needed some sort of kind of deliverable at the end. Exploratory analytics are so important, but sometimes that's a hard sell. And because exploratory analytics doesn't necessarily produce kind of things that you can term deliverables right away, how do you then, this is kind of what transitioned me from being a data scientist more onto a product team, is I wanted to enable analytics maturity at the company. And to do that, you kind of had to think about how you take your data science problem and productize it. So we want to expand our data model, and we want to enable things like community detection, such that we can provide more relevance results for every person based on what community they're in. It would also help with onboarding, for example. We wanted to look at new features we can leverage in our content, and potentially look into doing multiple ranking models to further enhance that relevancy. So I say per collection because when you use something like Solar, which is a search engine, it has a notion of collections. And so a collection would be a set of documents or content that would live in together, and they have similar attributes or features. And what you do is that you build a relevancy model on top of that collection. So I definitely wanted to build more of that. And so this is something that we don't do at our company right now, but we're starting to do it on the Compass team and around the global technology segment that I work for. And so how do you create a team where collaboration results in both an outcome for the team and for the core team, and then for the collaborators? And so Compass is really, the vision for Compass is a crowdsourcing project. And so we wanted to create a forum where if someone had kind of a vision of what they could take their analytics and productize it into our front end, or create a user journey or experience using our web app, then we are definitely open to learning about it. So we're trying to drive this kind of culture globally at our company, and so it's been fantastic to be able to kind of drive that in this project. So coming up next, or what's in progress really, we're working towards personalized search. It's really exciting. We're thinking about how we deliver recommendations for content and people to our users. Team pages, so this is coming up soon, where we're going to create basically a front end for team and product pages where you could have a lot of pointers to the different content that you create. And it also helps us with recommendations so that we can potentially kind of bring these search results to the top. This has been a big pain point for us, and I think that it's our preliminary user research has shown us that we definitely need to create an expert and technical mentor community. And so we're doing a lot of stuff in this space. I'm part of an effort where we're establishing an engineering boot camp, for example. But at the end of the day, that's like one event that happens, and we have to have some sort of continuous, continuous propagation of that kind of thinking and community. And so we need, people need to be able to find an expert very quickly at our company. And as I mentioned, we build the satellites, we build the ground systems, we do software development. So there's a broad spectrum of different kinds of engineering principles and practices that we use. And so it can get a little hard to find the right kind of person that can help you. We have a notion of hierarchy, but we don't quite understand the social network around Viasat. And I think it'll be really helpful for us really to understand who's interacting with who. And we're creating a forum for best engineering practices. And so part of that is to put together a developer portal. And so what does this mean? It means engineering first search. So so this is also on our in progress. Okay, Compass team rocks. It's been really fantastic working on this project. I really want to thank all the Compass contributors. Have some of my team members here, and our Neo4j contributors. So I gotta give a shout out to Neo4j. We just started our graph analytics journey, and we decided that we would start out with Neo4j professional services, and I do not regret that at all. I want to continue working with them. They're amazing. I really highly recommend it if you're starting out your journey as well. Fantastic group of people to work with. And then the Compass supporters and users, and thank you for your time.